Hi, welcome to the Gamesplainer. I'm Jeff the Gamesplainer and today I'm gamesplaining Black Angel. So this is Black Angel. It looks immense on the table. It fills a lot of space up to be able to actually play the thing. This game is set up as a 3-player game. The object of the game is to get the ship, the Black Angel, to the planet Hess, which is indicated at the moment by that marker. The other way the game can end is if this pile of cards runs out. So the marker that shows the end of the game is not yet on the board. How does that join the board? I'm glad you asked. There are two different elements which you'll need to deal with or to make a decision to play. The way that marker will get onto the board is by playing sequence B. So in essence, everything is AI. Sometimes you're kind of working-ish together, but you're definitely not working together. This is a individual game that can use what the other players have done. So sequence B is the reset sequence. You're not going to do sequence B until you have used all of the dice that are in your area. Most likely you can choose to use sequence B before that happens. If you choose sequence B while there are still dice, you're going to lose the number of points according to how many pips are showing. So at the moment, this player, if he chose to re-roll all of that, he would lose 3 points because there's 3 pips showing. Sometimes there's a star showing that shows a 0. So theoretically he could re-roll that or choose sequence B if that was his board without losing any points. So when you choose sequence B, you will take a die from each of these 3 areas. Depending on how many of these robots you have in those areas, you start the game with 1 in each spot, which means you'll get 1 die from each area, re-roll them and put them back in your location, which is the area you're playing from. You'll take any cards that you have through the game placed around this board and put them into their matching spot on the right hand side, and I'll explain why that's important at a slightly later stage. You will then advance the Black Angel 1, take the piece that's closest to the ship, flip it over and throw it into the top area, pushing everything closer. You'll notice that the planet has moved one thing closer, so we're gaining ground on getting to Hess, and that's really where the end of the game is. The other thing you can do, you don't have to, is you can elect to spend one of your crystals to put one of your dice into this bottom area. That's the locked zone, and I'll explain why that's important in a moment. That's sequence B, the sequence that moves the game forward. Now sequence A is the actual game, is the majority of the game, is everything else in the game. The very first thing that can happen is playing on this kind of central computer. So if he played a green card just there, this is going to get actioned. If there was a second green card, then both the green cards would get actioned. So that one means that he will get 1 extra point. So we'll move the point score along 1. If that happens to be what it looked like, then the green would be the only one that would actually happen, simply because it's a green card that's been played. If he played a red card, then both of these would happen. And the other one is to gain another ship into the setup or to move a ship around on the space. There is a pamphlet that has the meanings of all of these cards. It's just here. That's a really important pamphlet because it actually tells you what every card means and does through the game, and you'll find you'll probably look at that often. The reason you might put a green card here instead of the red card is when we did the sequence B, all the colored cards got put over in that location. That is going to give you the ability to score more points at the end of the game. Any of the red cards that were around the board just get discarded. The next thing that will happen is you will choose one of the dice in your main area and use that. To use the die, you're going to match the color die with the color of space. So the yellow one can go here, the gray one can go here, and the green one can go here. So if I used a yellow die on this section, that would enable me to get tiles from here. Because I only have a 1, I can only get this tile because that's the only one on the 1. If I had a 2, I could get any of these other tiles. If I had a 3, I could take that and one of the other tiles. Bearing in mind that at any point I can spend one of my bits of debris to flip a die over. So a 1 would turn into a 3. So if I use that, I can then use my 3 to take that tile and one other tile. These tiles will then get pushed into the board from one of these 6 sides. So I can elect with the colored one to come in from anywhere. So he might come in like that. The black ones are end game points. They come in from only this bottom space. So here or here. It's basically they have to come into that corner. They can push either direction, but they have to come into the corner. So it may be more worth his while to put that one in there and then bring that one in behind it. Notice that slid along. If he continues getting them and keeps pushing them along, that one will come off. That one will come off. Once this one comes off, it then gets placed in one of these 3 sections, and that will give me points at the end of the game. At the moment, he can get a maximum of 4 points, but then for every yellow card that ends up getting placed over there because of a sequence B, he can get another 2 points worth. So at the moment, this is talking about ejected debris, which will be those 2. He could score 3 of them if that was the case. Each of these tiles that is still in here can earn that maximum of 4 points, so you can get that twice. Each one that is ejected to here is 4 points plus however many cards you have, times 2, for the extra 2 points. And once those 3 spots are full, other ejected ones will just go to the side and they can get a maximum of 4 points as well. With the tiles, the black ones are replaced straight away. The colored ones are not replaced straight away. They'll be replaced later on, and I'll describe what that looks like when that happens. That die that was used is now pushed into the middle section, and we move on to the next player. If the player used a green die and came down here, that would allow him to get rid of one of these. If he was showing a 2, he could get rid of both of them. If he was showing a 3, he could still only get rid of the 2, because there's only 2 at the table at the moment. If in a later stage another 4 came up, that card would be pushed to the side, and that would be pushed there. Another one of these tokens would come onto here. If someone went here with a 3, that would be taken away with the 2. You cannot take away one of them as a 1. You have to use a 2 to take both of them, and then the third could take that one. If a 2 was rolled, you could only take those 2, or you could only take that one. If a 1 was rolled, then you could only take that one. You can't touch that at all. Let's just imagine that's a 1. So just that 1 card will come into his deck to be used down here potentially. And then that die goes down. The third one is here. Now, what you'll need to notice is if there is a single piece of this red cube, it's causing damage, but it's not a problem. That card will action, and what that one means is he'll put one of his robots from the Black Angel onto that card. Once that card's removed, all the robots on here end up back in the middle of the Black Angel. If there were 2 of the red tokens on there, that would actually equal that. It's like -1 on the die. So if he had a 3 that he was to put up there, that would act as if it was a 2 and just take 2 tokens off. So he might take both of those tokens. They then go into this area of the board, or they can go onto any of the tiles that are on the board. So that gives him another 2 points, and it's your choice if you go there or if you go here. And the reason for that will become clear in a little while. And once again, that goes back into the side. The other options that the player has is this. Now, you need to use a matching colored die, but what it's talking about is going out into space with these cards. Notice he only has a gray and a green card, so there's no point in using a yellow card on that, but it does exactly the same thing. So let's have a look at it. There are 2 types of card. One is a card that will gain extra stuff depending on how many times you rolled. Will tell you how many times you could do it if you have a ship on it. The other one will gain you points when it gets knocked off the back of the board. The other thing to bear in mind is the number tells you how far away from the Black Angel you're going to be able to go. So let's say, for example, this was the card that he wished to play, which means he's going to use the 2 on that. And what this looks like is one of your little robot guys that's in the ship will need to go to get its own little ship from your supply. So you will need to get more of them, which is on that tile. It's dropped down from the Black Angel, and he can go a maximum of 2. So theoretically, he could go to here, or to here, and he might find that he wants to go there to start with. That card is then put down. You take a second robot To mark it, notice that you're marking over the top of a little symbol. That might be points. In this case, it's another one of those crystals. And then that sits off on the side. Now, that card has been placed next to 2 of these markers, which means 2 of those cards are going to come out. If he'd placed the card there, he'd be next to a marker here, here, and here. Because he's placed the card over the top of one, that one doesn't actually action. We can't see that anymore. So 2 cards would come out, and in the top corner, it tells you where it needs to go. So that needs to go onto number 1, and that gets a bit of debris. And that one also comes onto number 1, which gets a second bit of debris, meaning that's going to be harder to actually use the yellow space action. The other thing that this card tells us is yellow and grey. So what that's saying is we push those 2 pieces in that order into that section. So suddenly there's 2 things that were worth 2 each and now worth 1 each. And that only gets replaced and only gets pushed along when those cards get put down. The other thing that can happen is if red on his turn decided to go on a space journey, or if he was already out there, he could stop there. That means that red is also going to get points for how many of his yellow cards he has tucked when this gets pushed off. So both of these players are now trying to get as many yellow cards tucked as possible. The alternate is the green card. So if this player played that, he would, number 1, need a ship. So let's just pretend he has a ship for the moment, but he would need to have got one from there. It can only go 1 away from the ship, so that's the only space that's viable, or where the Black Angel actually is at the moment. Once again, put that on there. That's covering up a 1 point, so he gets 1 point straight away. And what that now means is whenever this action is played by the white guy, he could spend one of those little spaceships and one of these cards out of his hand for 3 more points. If the red managed to find himself there, he could do the same, but it will take a little bit to get his ship there. The only other thing to remember, and this is something that gets forgotten an awful lot in games of this that I've played, is whatever colored die you have chosen to use on your turn. So let's say he just played the green. You'll take a color card matching back into your hand. Each die will get you a different colored card, and so theoretically you'll have the ability to play any colored card. If you've played the colored cards down here, you may not. The other thing that you can do is use someone else's die, and this is really the kicker. If it's white's turn, he has no dice, but if he still has some stuff that he wants to do, what he might do is go, I'm going to use that die. So to use that, he would need to use one of his crystals, pass it to the player he's stealing a die from, which in this case is the blue player. Take that and use it either here or here. It's totally his choice. This will score when that tile gets broken off. So 2 players would need to finish up for that to score, and that's going to score for anyone who's got guys on there. Some of the cards show 2 different spots. What this is saying is that whoever places their thing there would get their 4 points when they placed it. When it gets kicked off the back, whoever's there would get that, and then whoever's on those colors will get that. So theoretically, this player could send that off to another location and still gain this points because he's the owner of that card. Whereas if this was the card that was down, he would need to keep his guy on there if he wished to get the 3 crystals. Notice that he cannot go here simply because he already has something there, so there's always an open spot for another player. I think that that is everything with this game. If the Black Angel reaches Spec, you will get to get some extra points for all the stuff that you have. If it has not, so the game has finished because of the Ravagers taking over, then this stuff doesn't get scored. And it's a matter of 2 to 1. So at the moment he's got these 3 and nothing on the ship. If you had 1 on the ship, that would make 4, and just divide by 2. So that would be worth an extra 2 points to him at the end of the game if the Black Angel was able to make it 2 spec. And I think that I have covered all the rules for the game. I hope that this is helpful. Please go ahead and watch my gameplay to get a feel for how the game actually plays. If you have any comments or suggestions, please write them below. If you have any games that you would like to be Gamesplaned, please shoot me an email at thegamesplainer@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at thegamesplainer to keep up to date with the games I'm playing. Subscribe to my videos to keep up to date with the games that I'm gamesplaining, and until next time, enjoy gaming.